Welcome to the Called to Love podcast, a show dedicated to exploring how human relationships and intimacy with God are connected. Join us as we discuss hard-hitting topics that inspire and motivate you to go deeper into the intricacies of building meaningful relationships. Here now are your hosts, James Levacy and Brian Canadle.
Brian, do you remember a relationship in your life that was so easy? It was so easy to pursue it?
Oh yeah. I could think of several that I could spend enormous amount of time with. I don't know how productive it would be, but I know how fun it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there something about that relationship that you were going to get something out of it?
James, don't put me on the spot like that, man. That sounds like I have an agenda.
Yeah. So what is it about those, think about the closest relationships in your life. What's the difference between those? What is it about those relationships?
Well, you're comfortable. It's easy to spend time with someone that you feel comfortable with, that understands you. It's the hard relationships, the ones that are very difficult, that are sometimes the closest people are often the most difficult to connect with sometimes, or to be understood. You know how it is, familiarity.
Yeah. Well, most people only have, it's unusual to have more than one close friend. If someone has two, that's highly unusual.
It is.
Yeah. So you got to think, what is it about, close friends? How is it that we only can make one or two? It's a tough thing. There's no doubt that it's tough. Spouses are someone we find easy, like when we were dating.
Well, isn't it interesting? Falling in love is voluntary, but staying in love is a commitment. And often, if you notice, every relationship often starts off very easy, very exciting, but as it progresses, familiarity, or it's inevitable. It becomes a routine. You become relaxed. You know how it is.
Yeah, it's something that's even the ones that are close. They take work. But in a marriage, people can understand the components of what makes a good marriage. If your communication starts to waver or get weak, guess what? Your marriage is going to start to suffer. If you start lacking attention in a certain area, guess what? Your marriage is going to start suffering. Why is it that we think of other relationships so different? For example, the relationship with the Father. Is it because he's invisible?
That's a great question. When Jesus approached, when he approached Thomas in John chapter 20, Thomas was said, "Unless I see you, I don't believe you." He didn't believe 10 of the closest men in his life that he did every day with for 3.5 years. And he said, until I put my hand in my hand in his hands, in his side, I won't believe. And when Jesus approached him and walked through that wall, he said, touch me. Do you believe me now, and will you keep on believing? And that is something that has stood out to me, because you and I, as we've endeavored to be obedient in what God had birthed in our heart to love people and to meet with people, he also said, don't forget about me. Be intentional with me, and I will give you specific people that I want you to target. He knows the people he wants us to influence. He knows who he wants us to connect with. And it may not be who we think, but he knows. And the closer we are in spending time with him and being sensitive to his voice, the more strategic and the more effective we are with the people that he tells us to reach out to.
I think that was one of the transformations in my life when I started to remember and stay focused on the goal. Like when he started to show me to set people aside and focus on them. Focus on, what it is that they need. Start paying attention. That was really a transformation in my life, because it's easy to, like, I could give you an assignment, and then a month goes by, 6 months goes by, a year goes by, and you wonder, are we still doing the same assignment? Should we still be repetitively doing this thing? So it's easy to forget.
But to the measure that we're willing to yield to Him each and every day is the measure I find myself being filled. And I love it, because intentionality is one thing, but you do have to pursue. And if you notice, every relationship that God has created is to move towards intimacy. And it involves pursuit. Everybody wants to be pursued. Everybody wants to be wanted. So we're going to be coming up on a clip here shortly, and tell us what you think.
Yep.
And even after I became a Christian, I still was very worldly in my outlook, my whole idea about how relationships should work and run is that you just kind of meet somebody. It's kind of haphazard. You just rolling with the situation and flow. And if it works out to become a friendship, then boom, chuck-a-luck. Matter of fact, the only person that I really was intentional with was my wife. I pursued that relationship. As the Holy Spirit began instructing me, giving me revelation about it, teaching me how to look at people the way God looks at them. There was just something that welled up in me. I didn't have to, I've never felt like I've had to work at it. That is something, it just kind of the presence of God, Him counseling me, Him leading and directing me, just created in me the intentionality that I need to pursue people the way God pursued me.
I got a funny question for you.
Tell me.
How long do we treat new Christians like new Christians?
Until we get tired of treating them like Christians. Can we put a 30-day on them, James? Can we do that?
Maybe a year.
Okay, a year.
That'd be plenty of
Can
grace.
we start tapering off at 6 months? Our commitment, just pull away because we're going to punish them because there's not enough reciprocation going on.
I'll never forget this time I was standing in the foyer at a church we were attending, and this man walks up to me, and he is just going off to me, venting about this guy that's been in the church for 20 years. And he should know better. Can you believe he said this? And he was expecting sympathy when he was talking to me. And I just looked at him and I said, well, how long should we treat him like a new Christian? And he went, well, what do you mean? I said, how long should we treat him like a new Christian? Obviously he's having some struggles with his belief systems and the way he's talking. You can hear the way he's talking, right?
Yes.
So I tell you, what if we modeled to him what it looked like to have grace and mercy? See, you're always going to be modeling something.
So we can't have an expiration date.
There's no expiration
So, when
dates.
Peter went to Jesus and said, how often do we have to forgive? Was 7 not enough?
He was trying to figure out a way we could, what's the loophole? Jesus, listen to this, 7 times. He knew 7 times would be good enough.
Yes.
And he wouldn't have to do it anymore. But Jesus was like, I'm sorry. So, that's the thing about what is it about modeling? Like, if I'm late all the time, I'm going to be modeling it's okay to be late. If I'm, not telling the truth all the time, I'm going to be modeling what it looks like to not tell the truth. Pick whatever it is. But if I'm being sincere, I'm going to be modeling sincerity. If I'm being truthful, honest, consistent, that's what I'm going to be modeling.
Well, when you meet, and this is one of the things that everything's been trial and error for us, But one of the things that we found in the process of saying we're going on a journey together, we're in no rush. Inevitably, our desire is to talk about spiritual growth and maturity. Our whole goal is how can we be a better father, a better husband, a better businessman, active and a very involved person in your church. Ultimately, what you find is if you don't grow, you're never ever going to truly walk in the fullness of a renewed mind or a way God sees things. He says, my kingdom come, my will be done on earth as it is in heaven. There's a way his kingdom operates. If we don't get a grasp of that, then we will struggle with some of the same mindsets. And that's inevitably what we're wanting to do. In Proverbs, it talks about iron sharpening iron. Our whole goal is to be not only an encouragement to the people that we're meeting with. So every time, I'm getting up and I want to meet you at 6 o'clock in the morning, or I'm going to meet you at lunch, or I'm going to meet you after work, the first thing that should come in that person's mind is, I can't wait because I know I'm going to get encouraged. I can't wait because I know I'm going to be inspired. I probably can wait, but I know I'm going to get challenged. And that is what we want to do. It's not saying I'm superior, I'm smarter than you. It's saying we're on this journey together and I'm not keeping score.
That's
We're
right.
on this journey together and it's not about who's right or wrong. Meeting with people is not to debate theology. It's not to talk necessarily about doctrine. All those can be great conversations, but inevitably, if I say, what is the Lord saying to you? What's one thing he's highlighting to you? What's one thing that you believe that's robbing your passion to spend time with him? Those are legitimate, really incredible questions.
The mistaken reasons why we build relationships, one of them is the bond that we build in that relationship is usually a persuasive bond. Like, I start to change the way I believe about some things based on your experiences and not just based on my experience. I start having compassion for the things that are happening in your life, to whereas before it was so far from me. And then we start earning this right to speak into people's life. We can complain all day long about what we see in social media and what happens in politics and things like that. But all we do is we just look from a distance and say, man, that ought to be different. Well, what if everybody took an initiative to start building relationships with people they had differences with or didn't quite agree with, and then started to say, you know what, I'm going to show them the light of God. I'm going to start showing them how great it is to be in this relationship with the Father. I'm going to start modeling what it looks like to shine. And I think that would really have an impact on people's life. And actually, people are just looking for someone, can it really be done? Can it be lived out?
That's really good. And you know what? Every time you meet with someone and they leave, they're inevitably going to talk to someone and say, this is what's happening in this relationship. Let's watch a clip.
When I got that revelation, it did a couple of things for me. It just said, look, I'm going to pursue people. I mean, if Jesus can go after the one, I'm going after the one. If Jesus went to the cross for me, I am going to do whatever I can to serve people, even if, and this is going to sound crazy, I feel like I'd have to give my life for them just like Jesus gave his life for me. And I take that very seriously because I'm about 26 years in the military. I understand that concept. The Holy Spirit always gives me a little inkling and says, hey, Windsor, God made them the way he made you. And you need to take a look at them and look at them and feel for them, find out what's going on with them and embrace them right where they're at. So I want to love everybody. I ain't perfect at it, but I want to love everybody.
I just want to love people. But it's misunderstood. I tell you, half the people I talk to about love, they wonder if this is an all-inclusive, new age, just this big, we're just going to include everybody and accept every sin out there type of love. But what are we talking about?
Well, I mean, love has got many definitions to many different people. So you almost have to break what does love look like from me to you.
That's right. I mean, everything that we're called to do, Jesus gave us a really good example of how to do it. I mean, he spent time with people.
He did.
He had a few guys that he taught. He said, these other people, they hear my parables, but I'm going to explain them to you. Why? Well, they knew his heart. He knew their hearts. He knew what they were thinking. And this idea of love, it's about loving people into the kingdom. It's about loving people no matter what they've been through, where they've been, that they're going to find somebody in their life that doesn't judge them based on their past, and that is willing to have low expectations of how long it's going to take for them to lay down everything.
Well, notice there's a story for everything. And one story that everybody seems to like the most is a love story. And the greatest love story is what Jesus did for us. Yeah. Every relationship that we endeavor to develop and to maintain and walk in, we want love to have, what does love look like? Well, I want people to say, Brian was patient with me. Brian was kind. Brian was, he tried to be long-suffering. He tried to show self-control. There's expressions of love, and all of those are the very characteristics of the Holy Spirit. That is how we show that we are his disciples, not for the love we manifest for the Father, not for how much theology or doctrine that we know, but how much love we have for one another. That's a powerful statement in John 13:35. So I know for you and I, we had to learn. One of the greatest things I can tell you is in spending time with people, there were times I thought I was, I'm helping them. I really hope they appreciate this. And when I would leave, the Lord said, that was for you. I'm showing you something. So you and I were discovering that there was things the Lord was wanting to show us, and the only way we could truly grasp it through application was while we were meeting with someone. So some of our greatest growth came from the time we spent pouring into someone else or allowing them to speak into us.
Yeah. Well, the fact of the matter is you can preach and teach and do a lot of things to communicate a concept, but the thing that speaks the loudest is your actions. I can remember many, many, many times people being persuaded by the way I treated somebody. I can remember a man came over to my house one day, and my wife was upset about our dryer was out, and she was being real demanding about it. And I don't even remember what all I said, but after, later on, he said, man, I would have reacted totally different, but you were like so cool when you talked to her. And it was the knee-jerk reaction of what happens when love takes over your heart.
That's good.
And you start spending time with people.
That's good, James. All right, we're out of time.
See you next time.
We hope this episode of the Called to Love podcast has enriched your life and offered valuable principles to apply on your personal journey. Please explore our website at www.calledto.love for more information and to share your feedback with us. Until our next episode, may you find peace and love. And always remember, you are called to love.